Здравствуйте, уважаемые подписчики и зрители канала. Сегодня, как я и обещал, у нас интервью с замечательным коллегой, который занимается управлением персональным благосостоянием, и мы немножечко поспрашиваем его о том, что он может советовать, как вообще с его международным опытом выглядит текущая ситуация с точки зрения управления личными финансами в России, каковы подходы, каковы типичные ошибки, ну и всякое другое. С вашего позволения начнем. Говорить я буду по-английски. Заранее тем, кто знает язык, прошу простить мой английский. Я надеюсь, Майкл меня тоже поймет. Hello, Michael. First of all, a couple of words about yourself, about your experience, and about things what you do for your clients.
Okay. Well, I work here in Russia as a personal financial advisor. By background, I'm from the UK. I'm a chartered accountant by training, which is one of the premier business qualifications in the UK. I'm also a member of the Chartered Insurance Institute and a member of the Chartered Institute of Securities and Investments. I trained and qualified in accounting, auditing and financial advice back in the 1990s. I did my training in tax with PwC, and I worked in corporate finance and auditing until 2005 with Benthams and with Moore Stephens in London. I then spent 10 years working in industry and came back to client work a few years ago and moved to Russia and joined AVC Advisory. AVC has been here in Moscow since 2001 and is a specialist personal advisory firm focusing on planning and investment advice for individuals. We work with the whole spectrum of people. Some of our clients are wealthy, but most of our clients are people like you and me on their road through life.
So you work not only with wealthy people, but with, according to...
I firmly believe that financial planning is for everybody and it's essential. And the earlier you start, the better. You don't,
Absolutely agree with you.
You don't need to be wealthy to have financial advice or a financial plan, but if you start one, you are more likely to be wealthy. And people usually like that idea.
Absolutely. I am 46 right now, and well, I believe I would feel much better in terms of financial position if I started at 18 or 20 or even 28 years.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, you have an international experience, and you worked for a number of years in different countries, including UK, Europe, etc. And, as you've already mentioned, for, I believe, about 3 years,
That's right.
you work in Russia.
That's right.
So, what's, according to your experience, your opinion, what's the key difference between approaches to personal finance management, planning, etc. in Russia right now and in other countries you've been working?
So, in Western Europe, and especially in the UK and other countries of the world that were previously part of Britain and therefore have the same kind of legal system, financial planning is a far more established industry. It's a big part of the service sector, and it is quite normal for everybody to have a financial advisor of some kind. Partly that's because, for example, pensions law in the UK has become so complicated that an individual is not expected to be able to master all of it. That reflects a good thing from the UK, which is that people taking responsibility for their own affairs and planning for the future is a fairly established and embedded idea.
Mm-hmm.
Big contrast with I have experienced in coming to Russia is that this is a largely new idea for many. It's untried and untested.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I encounter working with people is the need to establish trust.
Even, especially in your business. Not only in your business, but your business is quite sensitive to it.
Especially in my business, because within a few minutes of a first meeting, I want to talk to you about your money. You need to talk to me about your
sensitive.
money, because if we don't, this is going to be a fairly difficult meeting. Okay. The other thing is that people here have experienced, everybody has experience of difficult financial times here. And times where trust in institutions and governments have been badly tested. Okay. So even though financial planning is a good idea, then implementing the plan sometimes has challenges because people are unsure or nervous about which institutions to work with, whether they should be in Russia or outside Russia, for example, and what will happen if things get tough or difficult. So my job is as much one of, if you like, financial counselling, financial therapy almost, as much as the details of investment portfolio. Lots of people like to ask me about how to put together a portfolio, but that's really the simple part. It's the technical part. It is a little bit like the engine, but people haven't got into the car. So why talk about how the engine works if you're not going to get into the car?
Very interesting analogy.
Actually, my favourite analogy, partly because I joined a gym here in Russia, in Moscow, only maybe 4 months ago, and I have a personal trainer. Now, I never had a personal trainer before in my life. Okay, I was convinced I could do it all, and I knew I was unfit, and I knew I needed to do something about it. But in fact, my wife told me regularly that something needed to happen. So you have two things. Firstly, for any human being, they have their body, their muscles. Okay, how fit the body is going to determine how you live your lifestyle, how long your life is.
Absolutely agree with you.
Yeah. So you know that to look after your body, you can join a gym and it will help. When you go to a gym, it's full of a whole range of machinery. Okay. You can either get somebody to help you to use all of the machines, or you can go on the running machine and run for half an hour. And then when you're really good, you run faster for longer, and your legs ache, and your thigh muscles get really good. Okay.
What about other?
What about the rest? You know, how does that help your breathing or your heart? You know, or your brain or your neck or whatever it is. If you work with a trainer, somebody you've never met until the first day, you'll discover how to use properly each machine in the gym, and you'll discover, without great physical exertion, that after a while you can move your neck more easily, which is nothing to do with running on a treadmill, you know. And so my job actually, your money that you worked hard for is like your body, okay? And people in Russia come to me and they like to think that they know how to do it, but in fact they can really make the financial equivalent of their legs pound very hard and wonder why their arms aren't getting better.
For example, they have a lot of bank deposits or shares of some companies.
Usually it's bank deposits. Usually here it's bank deposits, and young people buy their first flat. Okay, they have a mortgage. Mortgage rates are expensive, so they work hard to pay the mortgage off. And
without any investments, just to repay.
Yeah, which is quite sensible, you know, in some especially with mortgage rates that high, you know.
100% agree with you. It's quite sensible.
But then, so we have a flat and we have cash in the bank. Or we don't, you know, we may not have the money, but if somebody has income, usually they're amassing a small amount of money each month, and they don't know what to do with it. And the only other component we often find in somebody's financial assets here in Moscow particularly tends to be, you know, something introduced by a friend, which could be quite high risk, but you know, you can see it and know what's going on. So your friend starting a business or you know, of any kind, and you can put a few thousand rubles, a few tens of thousands of rubles into that, and you trust your friend. You know, even if he loses the money, you trust him. He did his best. You know.
Yeah. He maybe he really did his best.
Yeah, genuinely. Yes. Yeah. So between those, there's a whole range of things that you can do with your money. But the first thing to decide is actually where you want to end up. Don't start to do things before you know what the goal is. And then, where I come along is to start to create a plan and work with you to show all of your financial muscles and what you can do with them.
Okay, thank you. So, what's the main difference again between Russian clients and clients, let's say, in the UK?
Well, actually,
I mean, in terms of personal finance.
Usually, looking at it from a planning perspective, the big difference is the recognition that a plan is necessary. Okay.
So people here are less your Russian clients.
They're not used to the idea A, that a plan is necessary, and B, that there are people like me that will help.
Okay.
Once the planning process starts, actually there's a lot of similarity.
Okay.
People have families.
I understand.
People have assets and goals.
And that's quite the same.
That's
so
quite
the beginning is more difficult here.
Yeah.
More difficult from the client side, because they are less ready to start doing.
There is so the idea
of
psychological culture of planning and saving is
quite different
here.
Okay.
Yeah, different here.
Okay, thank you. Maybe you will have some advices or just brief recommendations for people who are ready to start managing their personal finance more seriously, but they do not know, do not understand from what to begin. Just few tips for the beginners.
The first thing to realise is that when you save money, you don't spend it. Okay? So, people think of their list of expenditure, and if they have something left, they may save it. Move that accidental saving into your deliberate activities. Okay? You've got to pay the mortgage, or you've got to pay for your car, or you've got to pay your rent, food. Okay? Move this accidental saving into that list of things you must do. Okay? And that number, I would recommend, should be approximately 10% of your income.
So the first recommendation is to move some fixed percentage.
So start to make a deliberate saving rather than accidental saving.
To make it regular
Yeah.
and to include it in list of things people do on a regular basis.
That's right. That's right. Okay. The thing to think about then is, if you keep your money in your pocket, for example, saving is just moving it out of one pocket to another pocket. You haven't given it away, it's yours. Okay, you've still got it.
But you do not touch it.
But you do not touch it. Okay, it's your special pocket. Nobody sees it.
Untouchable pocket.
You know what's in it. Okay. But it's still yours. Doesn't belong to the bank, doesn't belong to an insurance company, it doesn't belong to an advisor, it's yours. So, those actually starting to do that will make a huge difference. Okay. One of the things you asked me about the contrast between the UK, for example, and Russia, the savings industry in the UK has been around for longer. There are much more products available from banks and similar institutions in the UK to help you do this than I find here in Russia.
So, is this the main reason for which you are offering international instruments to your clients, or?
The international nature of the instruments is accidental. They just happen to be offered from the places.
So that's not the key.
It is not internationality that makes them. What's useful about some of those instruments is the tax environment. It can be the security, the long-established nature of the institutions themselves. All of this could be in Russia, but it isn't often in Russia. And those institutions that there are in Russia that have offered products similar to this, we're now seeing the central bank start to raise considerable concerns here about the ability of some of these products to pay out. Because, for example, the international institutions that I talked about are regulated quite robustly. So everything is transparent, and they have to have certain guarantees about performance or asset protection that at the moment are not present in Russia. So it is not being international itself, but it is some of the things that go with it.
Okay, thank you. So maybe you have some special recommendations for young people who are just starting their career, or maybe even students right now. In most cases, these people have relatively low income.
Yes.
And they want a lot of things right now.
Yes. I think for young people, firstly, start the discipline of saving straight away, so that you always have the habit of saving. It's very hard to start when you're 35. Also, the big benefits that come with saving are the benefits of earning passive income over time, and passive income on previous passive income. We call it compounding. Compounding the interest return. If you start at 20 and say you're saving till the age of, for example, 60, those extra years are the longest years upon which returns are gained. Okay, the hurdle you create by starting not starting until 40 doesn't mean you have to save half as much, twice as much. You have to save 5 times as much when you're 40 compared to when you're 20. The other thing to realise for somebody in Russia now who's starting a career at, say, the age of 20 or whatever it is, unlike grandparents and great-grandparents, you will live to the age of 80 plus.